keep track of everything or be up to date on all those things?
I have good amount of time in that case. Okay, so before we get started, I would again like to talk about first that there are so many people who are talking about beginner stuff on Business Center. So as people know here, we have started a Q&A series on Instagram. Every day there is a question, and then we talk about its. We'll be talking about answers of it at the end of the series. So right now we are on 19th day with 19 questions. So if anybody who is watching the recording and or if you have new people in the team, I would highly encourage them to come to Instagram and then answer these questions which are here. We have started from tables right now, from table properties. We'll get into field properties and then on the table object itself. The idea is not to remember these properties, but at least have a clue that these property exists and what these properties do. The future plan for this stream that's going on Instagram is that we might host a kind of a live coding session with everybody. Let's try to start and learn it from the beginning with the scenario in mind rather than understanding what kind of objects are there. So we'll continue doing that for a while. I have some plans going forward. So maybe by end of this year, we'll start doing live coding when we have touched overall base properties and object type that are available in Business Center. Okay, well, let's come back to this. So last week, Microsoft did announce what's new and planned for BC25. And let's in this session we'll try to kind of see what's there and let's try to understand what is coming in. One major thing which is about BC25, and that is not part of the release note, but BC25 becomes the first ever break version of Business Central. People who had done updates in the past would understand it easily that going forward after BC25, you will have to take a break at BC25 if you are upgrading. So if you are going to BC26, you will not be able to go from BC14 to BC26. BC25 becomes that version, which will become mandatory if either you are going to SaaS or either you are staying on-prem. BC25 becomes the first jump version. It's similar to how it used to happen in NAV. With the break version concept, Microsoft is going to delete all fields or tables which were marked obsolete for some reasons in the past version. So if you look into your database as of today, there are so many tables and objects which are already marked obsolete, and they are just there from lab 2016 and higher. Those objects are still there. So like product group code table was the first table, I guess, which was marked obsolete, and that table still exists in your database, either on-prem or SaaS. It's not operational, but it exists. And the whole idea was that because SaaS does not allow you to make destructive changes, these tables were marked obsolete and obsolete state as that they will be no longer used in either your extension or any dependent extension. So every 5 years going forward, Microsoft will have a break version. And in the next version after the break version, which is version 26 in this time, all these tables which are marked obsolete will be removed. Now, how does that impact you as an individual or as a developer? That if you are building apps for app stores and you were forced to mark those tables obsolete, version 26 becomes that version where you can actually delete them. We'll have to see how Microsoft bakes it in. There's not much info at this point, But whatever they'll do, I'm pretty sure they'll extend it to partners and developers so that they can also clean up their extensions as needed. So from an update perspective, version 25 becomes the place where you have to stop. So customers who have not yet upgraded to Business Central AL version will have to break at BC 25 going forward. And that's just behind the scene, but it'll surely impact the timeline of upgrades and projects like that. Okay. Other than that, it seems there is a separate section which was added in the last release, which is Copilot and AI innovation. But let's deal with the development first. Let's see what's coming up for developers. So that's surely impacts us going forward. Okay, let's see one by one what these are. Okay. And this is not the final. I'm pretty sure there will be updates happening before the next version gets released in September. But we'll see what's coming up as things are moving. So everybody hopefully have used the profiling feature in Business Center. And if you haven't, then you should be, because this helps you to understand the performance of a particular process that user is running, and then even helps you to provide detail of which extensions were part of it when user were running this process. It also gives you a whole call stack of all the code that has been executed while you were running that process. So I hope everybody have seen it. If you haven't, let me know. We'll briefly talk about it. But this feature was there from the beginning, more or less. And there are some major enhancement coming into the inclined performance profiler. So till now, what we can do is on a process anywhere, when you go into help and support, there is an option where you can have a session with user and they can click on analyze performance, which opens a in-client performance profiler, which is this performance profiler. And you tell your users to run the process where there is a slowness or where there is a problem. And as soon as they reach to the starting point where they can show you the process, you click on start of it, and then you let them execute whatever that process is. While this is happening, this tool is recording everything that user is doing. And then let's say if I create a sales order from here, and if there is an error, everything that's happening will get recorded. And once they are able to show you the performance issue, you can hit stop, and that gives you a chart like this, which tells you which all apps were called when user performed whatever they were doing. And then you can show the technical info where you can see again the apps, and then you can also see the objects that has been executed with time spent from them and the app that they are part of. You can also see the call tree, how this all was executed. User clicked on customer list on open page, then they clicked on these actions, and that's how it happened. Now the beauty of this tool is if you are working as a developer with Dockers and all, and you are not able to mimic customer environment, you don't have to mimic the customer environment as it is. You can just download this file and then upload this file onto your environment, which may or may not have the same apps or version even, and just see the same info in the same format. This file can also be opened in your VS Code to see a top-down graph of what code is being executed at that point. And if you have the symbols available, it'll also navigate you to that code. So this was in time. Whenever there's a problem, you work with user and see it. But it seems they are making some enhancement into it. So there is a whole schedule that's being built for it. So other than what we were doing till now to analyze the result, your customer administrators or consultants can set up schedule to run these activities on a particular user at a particular day in the time. Let's say it's only happening between 10 and 11 a.m. So you can schedule that, and then these will run automatically behind the scene for that particular user. So you can enable them, you can define the start and end time of when they should be running. You can provide the description. You can provide the user ID for which this should be checked. So if the user one is saying I have the problem, you can configure that profile profiler schedule for that particular user. And in the same way, you can set up the activity type, like is it background task, is it activity on the browser, and then you can also set up other things like threshold and retention period, how long you would like to keep that data. So this gives you a way to build in schedules based on when your customer is facing certain profile performance issues in different areas. And this will give you all the details that's there. I don't know yet that this will allow you to download the file or not. We'll have to wait for the preview version to see is there a way that I can download it or not. Okay, any questions on this? Otherwise, we'll move next. Okay, let's go next. I don't know the language that Microsoft is trying to shift us, but there's a new operator called, what is this called? Ternary operator, which is available in AL now. So rather than writing these complex if else and all, you can just use the new operator with Business Central and write that expression in one single line. Will that impact performance? I'm not yet sure. We'll test it out as we tested other things. But this is a change that you'll start seeing on Microsoft code. And if it surely helps in performance, I guess we should also start using it. So it's just like if you have done Excel, right? If this is true, then the first statement, otherwise the second statement. And I have seen examples on Twitter and LinkedIn and other places where you can go a little bit deep into it, not just specific true and false. So you can have, if this is true, then this, otherwise another set of expression being ran, and then have its own output parameters going forward to it. Does anybody know from which programming language this is coming from? I'm not sure.
No idea. Maybe JavaScript.
Nah, that's not the direction I guess Microsoft would be thinking about. But is it, if it is only to minimize the code length, I would doubt that, the, our mindset would change so easily. But as this becomes generally available, we'll surely would like to test it from a performance perspective. That does this statement make sense, or does this statement make sense from a performance perspective? Okay, another one is pretty interesting. I would like to see how this gets shaped into it. But on your extension management page, you will have an option to download the source code and then open it on your Visual Studio if extension partner allows you to do that. I'm pretty sure it'll respect the settings that you set on your app.json. But in the previous release, if you know that to make it easier for um, developers or even consultant to do debugging, Microsoft build a feature to open a specific page or a specific field on VS Code, and the capability allowed it to automatically identify the environment, the tenant setting, and it was creating all that uh, VS Code project automatically for you. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen that. If you haven't, then go to a page anywhere And then from here, I guess, or not from here, on the, what is that? Control Alt F1, whatever that is about. You get an option to explore page in VS Code, which automatically creates a new VS Code project for you, and then attach and provide all the launch configurations and all automatically attached to this particular tenant and environment. This automatically creates three kind of launch profiles for you, or launch configurations for you. One is to download symbols, one is to start the snapshot debugging, and one is to start normal debugging. You can do it either on a field page basis or even on a field basis. So if I would like to see what the code behind this field, and I'm not a developer and I would like to see that, I can just do this and automatically take me to that page or the field if that field is allowed by the extension developer to be accessed, which is dependent on your your extension app.json file. So if I do this right now, it'll automatically will try to find VS Code on my machine, will automatically pop up the VS Code and take me directly to the sales header, that page. So I click OK here, open here. It says, do you want to use a current project or do you want to create a new project? I say create a new project. It will automatically go into it and create three configurations for my launch, which are connected to my specific tenant, as you can see here on tenant. And then these three configurations are, okay, let me enter the code as it is suggested there. Okay. Okay. Continue. So what it is trying to do is trying to download the symbol automatically. I don't have to do anything of that sort. It automatically linked my snapshot and normal debugging configuration to my specific session that I'm using. And then it have automatically set the settings that are needed. And right now, based on this particular launch configuration, it is downloading symbols, which will be from the environment that I'm connected to. Now, it also understand the page where you are in. So I'm on this page, and it respects all the extension that are associated on this page for downloading symbol. So it just did not download the base, the foundation application, system and system application, but it also downloaded all these because these are part of the page where I was in. And to do that, it had to create the right app.json, which it did create. So this was kind of the first step to help consultants or non-developer to start debugging. So as we clicked on the build to address to, once the symbol download happened and everything happened, it automatically took me to that exact field saying, okay, this is where you clicked on it, and this is the code that's written over there. Now, if you have restricted access to your app, even a developer or a consultant does it, they'll not be able to see it. But then you get three options here, which is for snapshot debugging, regular debugging, or you just wanted to do this, see it. So on the similar lines, to extend it to a higher version, they are going to access extension code, but only from the GitHub repo. I'll be surprised if it doesn't work with the Azure DevOps, but right now it very clearly says, but if the source is in GitHub repo. So going forward, you will see a new action on your action management extension management page to open source in VS Code. Again, it'll respect the app.json settings, and if it is there, it'll automatically download the source and clone the repo from the GitHub to your machine. For that, if it is not your extension, then it should be a public repository on GitHub. And if it is your extension, Hopefully it'll be able to authenticate you. There are no much detail at this point, but we'll see what happens once this gets released. Any questions on it?
No.
Okay. This AI is killing me. Let me close this. Okay. Okay. I did a video about this, which is use of this. So this is coming in. This is again a change in how you code that's coming in. And I see a question or a comment in chat. C. And I don't know, Rajendra, what you're saying with C. But okay. This keyword is a new keyword, which is part of the programming language now. And this is equivalent to the current object. On a table basis, you will say it rec, but this will act as a replacement for a rec if you are thinking from a table perspective. So the new this keyword is introduced from other language. It supports passing the current object as argument to the objects, and until now only been possible with less optimal workaround. So this will make it easier, it seems. So you can pass code unit references just by using this. So there is not an example of this here, but for this, a new code cop rule is added by default with severity hidden right now. That means there will be 3 dots, but a problem which can be fixed in the pipeline. Okay. We'll have to see more about it, but the system application is converted. So from Microsoft perspective, they have updated the system app. So any references to the current object in the system app, and you see them, you will see the keyword this over there. I guess we can test it out. You can just get into your AL language extension and switch to pre-release version. So currently the pre-release version will support version 14, I guess, of runtime, and that should allow us to test out any of these coding changes that we talked about, like this or that ternary operator, whatever that was. So that will be available if we switch to the pre-release version. So this helps you to allow code unit to pass references of the current code unit to the other method. And this also helps you to readability or reference of the object itself. So if you see it on the system application, you will not see it on the base application at this moment, it seems. But in system application, you will see the keyword this used by Microsoft at this moment. Okay, this is much needed. So what used to happen if you publish, and you should never, but if you publish directly from VS Code into a sandbox environment, and because of a error on the compile time, the extension was not about to be published, the deployment was failed because of a compilation error in your code which you're trying to publish. What used to happen is all the dependency that your app had were removed, and you had to go and manually install them again before you fix your code. With this version and this update, Microsoft is making sure that if your deployment fail, your other dependencies are rolled back to the original stage and they don't get impacted, so that you don't have to work on them manually. So with this release, Visual Studio Code now tries to restore the previous extension state, removing the need of manual work, which was installing those extensions which got uninstalled and unpublished if there were any dependencies to that particular app. So if you created an app and then there were 2 dependencies on your app, and you're trying to test some fixes on your main app, when you try to publish it from VS Code, the dependencies get automatically uninstalled, and then you have to install them in case of failure. So now it'll happen automatically that when you do that, either it'll be a full deployment on the app on your sandbox environment, or it'll be a complete rollback at that moment. Anybody faced that in the past? I don't know. Okay. Report document. Now I'm a little bit interested into it. I haven't understood it completely, but let's read it. Developers and power user can use more of the features that Word provide for document layouts. These improvement reduce the time spent on designing layout for document and let more power user with the document layout. So there's some enhancement coming into the Word layout. And somebody was asking that about the Word layout, so we might have to start understanding the Word layouts again. But you can use a report document in Business Central when you need to send a document like code and order and invoices. There are following improvement in the Word layout. You can use sections in the Word layout even when you can use the word merge data item property. This ability allows you to set margins, orientations, column inside your Word layout, and also you can use different watermarks for different parts of the layout. So you'll have to see what happens with that, but it seems a continuous focus on the Word layout from Microsoft. So we'll see what happens with that. But it seems that if you are using sections till now in Word layout, then you cannot use the word merge data item property. And if section breaks are present in the layout in such a report, then user sees the error, you cannot run the report. So this is surely solved. And then there are other capabilities that are added into it. From the report layout page, you can download the Word layout template for these reports. The report templates make it easier to convert it to an RDL layout or a customer specified Word file into Word layout of a report. Now, this is interesting. Is there a way that I can convert a Word layout to an RDL layout? I don't know yet, but let's see what comes up with that. As in, you can download the template, and the layout template makes it easier to convert an RDL layout or a customer Word layout into Word layout for a report.
Yeah, I think it is saying RDL will be converted to Word.
To Word, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's also interesting because RDL comes up with more power from a designer perspective. You have controls over what line will be visible, uh, conditionally what will get printed, what gets into header and footer, which was surely some limitations that were part of the Word layout. But if I can convert a RDL layout to a Word file, which becomes a Word layout, I guess that works. So now you can control the conditional visibility of text, tables, and table rows and column. Now this was not available till now. In a Word layout, whatever is coming from the data set will get printed into the Word layout when it runs. It seems there are new possibility being added into the Word layout. So now you can do conditional visibility of different components into it. So I'm
But
not a huge fan of Word layout, but go ahead.
it is much needed since I'm working on a Word layout.
Okay.
Yeah, it is much needed.
Yeah, and as I said, I'm not a huge fan of Word layout, but if it makes sense, I guess I'll spend some time into it. Okay. Package resources in extension and access from AL. Now, I am I wrong? I need to think about it because the the documentation of this topic says that now you can add more resources into an extension and then refer them into AL. So let's look at, because I was not very clear about it. Often feature requires some data, like to initialize and set up. Until now, it has not been possible to add such data and consume from AL through use of labels or code. In this release, we are adding the ability to include resources in the extension and access them from AL. Now, I can be completely wrong, but I guess you can do it in Dockers today, where you can ship a file with your extension, which then can be accessed. But I can be completely wrong. But now developers will be able to package resources and then access the content of these resources within the AL code. So like if you have to ship the data for setups and all, you can then package a rapid start file into it, demo data into it, and templates. And then you don't have to manually create these labels or code unit for this purpose. There's a scenario when you are installing an app and you also have to load the data. So you can use rapid start packages. It seems you can also use demo data and templates. So this will be a little bit interesting to see, because right now, whenever a setups need to be created, you write it on your install code unit, and then a lot of labels and text constant that you use, so that you can then put that data into the system. But if you can actually ship a rapid start package with some demo data that gets accessed by AL later, which means, and I'm assuming, that I can create a button on a page saying load demo data or load test data. And from the code, I'll be able to access that rapid start package, which is available there, so that I can use it. I can be completely wrong, but let's see what comes up with that. Okay, finally, it seems the time for with is over. So with was announced to be obsolete or not required a very long time ago. I guess in version 17 or 18, Microsoft announced that there is no more with. And in the latest versions of Business Central, you will see this line being added on your app.json, which is no implicit with, which means you, when you're writing your code, you can't skip the width. So like when you're creating a page, on every field that you're adding, you will have to append the rec dot into it, which is an with statement being used. So like if I'm creating a page, let's create a page easily, wizard voice temp, let's say on customer table, and let's keep it simple with list, and let me add some random fields here and there. Okay, so the AZL tool automatically appends a rec, but if you remove these recs from it, it will turn into a warning or an error, sorry, saying that you cannot access address, and the reason is because there is a no implicit with feature that's being added. So if I remove this, it'll give me the warnings that are needed, which is you cannot use the implicit with, and this will become an error in the future. And I was getting error because I had that feature enabled here. But as I removed it, and if you have removed it, you might have a lot of warnings here. It seems that Microsoft is going to completely remove it, and for that they have made a new snippet to fix the with statements into it. So till now there was a action item to fix the width, and let's see that. So if I do it here and I write a procedure into this, okay, the procedure, and here I say, let's say item table of record item, and then I use a implicit with, which is very common if you are bringing some customizations from legacy versions. The use of implicit with is very normal. So till now, Microsoft had this button somewhere here, I guess, yes, which will convert the with statement to the fully qualified statement. And as you click on it, it automatically sets wherever the reference of it to the item variable at that point. But it was painful when you have bigger projects where you have a lot of code units and a lot of objects where with being used. Microsoft, like what I showed you was a generic support for running code on the active document, where you can just click on that button and convert the users of with. But now in this release, the code action to convert users of with can now be run on the entire document or even on the entire project. So if you have a bigger project where there are a lot of widths, there would be a command, and I think I should see it now because I have updated my extension. Let's see, with copy syntax debug without file compare. I don't see it. Let's see, al with publish dev. This is not Microsoft. These three are not Microsoft, but I think they said that they have it. Oh, maybe because I'm on runtime 13, I don't see it. Should see it when I change it to runtime 14. Now, runtime is dependent on the version for which you are coding. So based on this, there are different features that gets enabled and that gets removed if you enable change your runtime to the right version. So let's search for AL with debugging. No, I don't see it. But as per the documentation here, there will be a command available which can act on the current file, the current project, or on the workspace that you're working on. So I think we should consider this as a warning, to be very fair. And if you have any with the statements in your code, utilize this opportunity to refactor them and remove all the widths, because this is going to be removed. Now with this, I'm pretty sure I'll treat it as a warning and I'll make sure that none of my extension have any widths, because this was missing from Microsoft side more or less, to have an easy button to fix all the implicit widths. Now they have given the implicit width statement. I'm pretty sure they are going to remove the width. Any questions on this one? Okay. Type testing and casting operator for interface. But before that, let's come here. Extend AL interfaces. I'm pretty sure we have talked about interfaces in the past. There are a lot of things which are moving toward interfaces from a Microsoft perspective, the whole pricing engine, and there are other things which are completely moved to an AL interface. But the limitations was that you were not able to extend the interface object till now. But with this version coming up on in October, the support to extend interface will be available. So now you can extend one or more existing interface when you declare an interface. When you declare an interface, okay. When implementing an interface that extend other interfaces, the implementer must also implement all the method from the extended interface. Let's try to do that. Can I actually extend an interface? Hmm, let's go back in here. Let's go to AL Explorer and let's by type and let's find an interface. Okay. Okay, let's try doing this. Let's try extending this. Can I actually extend this? Okay. Well, they're saying you can extend an interface. Okay, so let's create an interface. My barcode extends barcode font encoder, and then I can add a new procedure into it. Okay, I should not be doing this like this, but it should be just the definition of it. So let's create this. Okay. SDH barcode input and text and text. Now, what if I try to refer this interface? Will I see this also? Must implement ifoo, which is coming from here, ibar and ifooter bar. Oh, okay. So it's not an interface extension. You're actually creating a new interface, which is extending and adding a new procedure into it, but you are not actually changing the main, which makes complete sense. Okay. So it's not like how we extend tables and pages and other things, where if we add something and another app can also see what I have changed if they take a dependency on mine. But in this case, there were these two interfaces which had one procedures definition into it. This interface extended both of these interface and add a new procedure into it. While I'll be implementing the new interface only, which I have extended, I'll have to define all these three. But if I'm implementing this interface, then I only have to implement this. Yes, is it confusing? As in, to me, it's clear. But if it is confusing, we can surely talk about it.
Yeah, it would be nice to see example.
So if I do codeunit 50101 implements, how you write it, I always get confused. Okay, implementer, and then you write the keyword implements. So if I try to do the actual implementation of actual interface, which is this, what happened? Implementer does not implement the interface member barcode and code font. Okay, you'll have to start implementing all the methods which are here. Okay, that's a mandate. So somehow
Yeah.
you'll have to write this method, which is t procedure, and then you'll have to call this method as it is in code font. In code font, and then you'll have to define all these parameters as it is. And this is how you want in your code unit, how you want to consume these. And then again, I can just copy this and write it. And then let's pick this one as it is. It's it in here. What happened now? Does not implement the interface member in code font. I did that and is valid in code. Okay. Both of them are returning text. One of them is returning text, and one of them is returning a boolean. Okay. Now, even if, and that's where the difference is, don't think it from a table extension perspective, right? Because in a table extension perspective, I could have referred the field which I have created by using table extension in a code, right? But in case of interface implement, if I'm trying to implement, and let's try this here, let's copy this here as it is. Sorry. Okay. If I try to do another implementation, but this time, instead of referring to this, I'm referring to my extended interface, which is this. then and only then I'll be forced to implement SDH in code. But if I'm referring to the actual one, I'm not forced to use the my custom called uh, defined procedure into it. So in this, I'll also have to do this also. Okay. And then it'll compile. Now let's think about the benefits of it from a use case perspective. Oh yeah, there is a good amount of benefit of this, that on Microsoft interfaces or any other apps interface which are available in the system, I can extend it and then announce it to other apps which are available in the same environment, that I have a different implementation also available if you would like to use it. So let's say on an interface, there are three functionality that are provided by Microsoft, and you create an extension of that interface and you add two more functionality. Then you can announce it to other apps. You can surely use it in your app, but you can also announce it to the other apps that if they would like to get these two new functionality, then instead of implementing Microsoft interface, utilize my interface where I'm already defined, where I'll be using what Microsoft is providing, but I'll also give you two or one new method to execute in this similar way. Not something which is very common if you are only building PDs, but I'm pretty sure it'll be helpful if you are working on apps for app stores and other scenarios. Any questions on this one?
No, I think it makes more sense now.
Saurav, I was just wondering if we have in this example we have three interface, two are main and one is extended. So what if IFU is that I bar extends IFU and then IFU bar extends I bar. So will it cover all three or will it cover only two?
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
Okay. So let's say I created interface A and then I created interface B, extends interface A, then I create interface C, extends interface B.
C
Now
extends B. Okay.
and B extends A. So when I'm referring in codeunit C, so will it be covering B and C or will it cover A, B and C?
If it is not a compile time error and we can test it, then it should be referring A, B, and C. I'm assuming from an hierarchical perspective, but let's test it out. It's a good question and we should surely check it. So let's do that. Okay, let's keep this simple here. Okay, so let's come down here and let's let's define an interface simple as Microsoft have done here in example IFU, but let's keep it A. Okay, interface A, which have procedure A1, okay, and also a procedure A2. Then whenever your keyboard changes, because whenever your laptop changes, it's always hard to type in on this, but that's okay. Okay, and now there is an interface B. Okay, which have B1 and B2 for sure as addition, and then as Avinav said, let's try it to extend A. Okay, so now when you try to consume B, you will have to be forced to A1, A2, B1, and B2. But let's go a little bit ahead, which I think should be a compilation error, but if it is not, interesting. If there is a C which extends B and then gives you a C1 and C2. Wow, interesting that it is not a compile time error. Okay, let's go in, let's define a code unit. 3 which implements C. Okay. And if that happens, what happens is I'll be forced to implement C1, C2, B1, B2, A1, A2, sir. All of them. Does that make sense, sir?
Right.
You will have to define everything in the hierarchy. And that's what I thought. That if it is not a compile time issue, which I think it should be, I don't know, it can go pretty deep into it. But okay. But yeah, if it's not a compile time issue, I'm pretty sure Microsoft is thinking about it. And they surely have a reason why they did not make it a compile time issue. But I'm pretty sure I cannot create a okay, I'll test it in the vacuum. I don't want to waste time here. But okay, if you have worked on interface, great. If you haven't, let me know. We can talk about it in some other time of why this is the direction where Microsoft is moving most of the features toward. Okay, type testing and casting operator of interface. So we saw is, there is another friend of is. Oh, sorry, we saw this, and then we saw is. If you haven't, then there are two new babies here, is and as. So remember, you have the question mark with the ternary operator, then you have this, and now you also have is and as. So in this version, Microsoft introduced support for casting between AL interfaces. Given an interface A, you can now cast it into an interface B if the underlying object, only code unit for now, implements B. The two new operator is and as are added to facilitate this. The is operator allows you to test whether an instance of an interface or the content of the variant supports a specific interface. So is and as is only limited to interface at this moment. Okay, so if you're not in interfaces, you might not have to deal with is and as. But you, with the possibility of is, you will be able to check. Not just you don't are forced to type, send out a interface to verify it. You can also pass it to a variant like this example. And then with is, it'll be able to map that is it is mapping to an interface or not. Whereas the as operator is used for casting an instance of an interface to a specific interface. So you can map interfaces between each other using as. So it can say int f as I bar. So whatever the I bar is, it'll be passed to, in this case, it's an exit statement, which will throw an error if this one is not an implementation of the I bar interface itself. So whereas the intf is an interface again. It's a little bit confusing, but this is where things are going toward. So is and as are only required if you're working on interfaces. If you're not, then don't worry about it right now. Okay. Most wanted feature, at least from some of the customers, that they would like a possibility to extend and customize profiles from other extension. Till now, when you're working on profiles, if a customer says they want their own profile, you have to start from the scratch. Yes, you can copy paste object, but then it doesn't always rely to the latest copy of the current profile that has been shipped by Microsoft in the new version. So it was needed that partners or developers can extend the custom profiles which are built and extend also it. So going forward, you can create a new object type called profile extension, which can then extend a profile page which is built by Microsoft. And you can now create profiles extension using AL code. They can be used to modify the target profile caption, role center, or even include or remove it from the role explorer. It is also possible to add page customization to a specified profile. In addition to the language support, additional coverage in IntelliSense, AL Explorer, and Analyzer rule has been added, that's for sure. But this makes it easier when a customer says that, yes, all that looks good, but I would like to have our own profile page, and which mimics, let's say, a sales operator page, but we need some additional info on it, or some things removed from it. So that'll get sorted out with the new feature that's available with Business Central here. And I guess that's all was there into the development at our time. But if there are any questions, I can wait for a while. Otherwise, I'll see you next week.
Thank you, sir. It was a great session. We are
Thank you, ma'am.
updated with the latest things.
Thank you.
I didn't realize that this session has been shifted to Friday. So luckily,
Oh.
I've got a chance. I'll keep
No
it
problem.
in my mind now in the calendar.
Yeah, we might shift it back to Saturday. That was done for the summer holidays here in India. But we might, maybe by end of this month, the next meeting will only, most probably would be the last meeting on Friday. We might switch back to Saturdays in next month.
Wow, this will be wonderful. And Fridays, sometime it's long
Yeah,
that we are working.
I know.
But in Saturdays are good to go for this thing.
Okay. Anyone else? Any thoughts, comments?
Nice session.
Thank you.
Thanks, Saurav.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
man.
sir.
See you next week.
Thank you, Saurav.
Yep.
Thanks, man.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Okay. If you are still here, if I said something wrong somewhere, let me know into the comment section. If we think that we need to talk in detail about any of the features that we discussed today, let me know into the comment section. And again, as I said in the beginning, if you are interested into answering questions about Business Central, basic question, one every day, head up to Instagram. My profile ID, I guess, is saurav.gani. You can search for it every day at 10 a.m. India time. There is a new question posted every day, which is around Business Central. You can answer those questions. The correct answers will be posted once the season 1 is over, which should get over on 30th of this month. So go ahead if you're interested and answer that there. And we'll be talking about more complex thing in future into the quiz area also for sure. But let me know into the comment section what I'm doing wrong, what I said wrong. And if you are interested, yes, important thing. The new people who would like to be part of these meetings, you will have to let me know your email ID or details into the comment to this video, or send me an email at postsaurav.com, at gmail.com. Because of some changes on the Microsoft Teams update, we are not able to organize it like a meeting where you can join at any time, or where you can register earlier. So if you are interested, drop me a ping on the comment, or send me your email address, and I'll make sure that you get invited going forward. Thank you and have a nice day. See you then.